Welcome back, guys. Hope you're all doing great. And today in this video, we're gonna build the API server APIs by using Google Firebase Firestore collections and by using the Python FastAPI package. Right, so we're going to use the Python to create our server APIs, and I'm going to show you how to deploy it on the live server. So previously in the previous video, we discussed about how to work with the Python fast APIs and by using PostgreSQL database, by using powered by NeonDB, and working with Prisma ORM, and we try to deploy it on the free domain as well as. Okay, and in this video, so we're gonna use the Firebase Google Cloud. So we're gonna use the Google Cloud. So if you haven't watched the previous video, I tagged the link on the top right corner. So please go ahead and you can click it and you can watch that video for yourself. And along with that, in this video, we're gonna build that Prisma. We're gonna build the server APIs by using the Python and as well as the Google Cloud, just by using everything is free. So we're going to build everything completely from the ground, and it's completely free. We're not going to use any paid plugins or nothing like that. All we are going to do is completely from the ground, and we're going to create ourselves the server APIs along with the Swagger UIs and all those stuffs. Okay, and finally we're going to deploy it on the public domain as well as. Okay, so let's get started. And before getting started, so we have to stop making these Firebase mistakes. See, if you choose a wrong database mode, your entire backend will break and you can't even fix it later. So in this video, I will show you how to build a Python fast API backend using Firebase the right way and avoid the costly mistakes what I did during the build. Okay, so we are going to build a complete backend setup, right? Just by using the fast APIs for server APIs. And we're going to use the Google Firebase Firestore for database connections, right? So along with that, I will show you some real errors I faced and how to fix it step by steps. Okay, by the end, you will be able to working the backend connected to the Firebase all by yourself. Okay, so let me show you something important. If you create a Firebase project in a database mode instead of native mode, so what we're talking is get into the firebase.console.firebase.google.com. And all you have to do is to create yourself a new Firebase project. Just create a new Firebase project. In this case, I'm just going to name this file as the server-API using Python YouTube tutorial. So let me create this, continue, and I'm not going to enable the Gemini AI. So let me disable it, click continue, and I don't need the Google Analytics as well as create the project. So this might take the while. Okay, so by the time if you're creating a Firebase project in the database mode, okay, we should go with the native mode. We should not choose the data store mode. So problem when you're choosing the data store mode is the Cloud Firestore API will not be available, which means you can't use that in your fast APIs in order to work with the Google Firestore as your database. And here's the worst part is once you create it, you can't change it later. And that's the biggest issue, right? So in order to fix that, all you have to do is to delete it, reconfigure it, and then you have to get back over here. Okay, so in this case, all we have to do is to enable your where is the database storage, and over here get back to your Firestore. Okay, and there you have to, let's wait, it's taking some time. I'm not sure why. Here we go. So all you have to do is to create a database, and you have these two different options, standard editions and the enterprise editions. Let's go with the standard edition itself. Click next and choose the default ID and choose your nearest location, and as well as click next. Either you are going with the production mode or you're going with the test mode. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go with the test mode itself, because anyways, after this video, I'm going to delete this. So let's go with the test mode itself. Let's create it. The reason why we are using the test mode instead of production mode, because I'm not going to take it on a live. So if you're going with the live servers and all those things, you have to go with the production mode, and you have to configure the security rules, who can access and everything. And you can keep it private itself in the rules, because we're going to use the admin SDK. So you have the admin credentials in order to work with, so you don't have to worry about the rules stuffs and everything. Okay, so this is the collections that we have to create. Okay, so this is what yeah, so we created ourselves database now, and all we have to do is to get back over here and get into the service account sections, and there you should be able to see the service account sections where you can generate your private service account key, JSON files and everything. Okay, so here we are. So click the Python. This is the credentials that we needed. We have to generate the key and we have to get it into our project. So in order to do this, all you have to do is to straight away, we have to jump into the action. So we have to get back over here and get into the github.com. And all you have to do is to create yourself a new repository. And I'm just going to see Python backend server API using Firestore and FastAPI package. Okay, so this is going to be the YouTube tutorial. Okay, I think this much is enough, and I'm going to keep this as a public repository, and I'm going to create this repository. Perfect. And let me open up my terminal, and I need to jump into the desktop location. So let me make it a little bit bigger so you can see it clearly. Then here I'm going to create myself a directory in the desktop locations, which is going to be Python YouTube server API, something like this. That's the folder name I'm going to create. Then I'm going to open this Python YouTube server API folder. Okay, so here we go. So we have ourselves the pro folder, and let me make it even a little bit bigger so we can see it clear, loud and clear. Perfect. Okay, so next I'm gonna minimize this. Let me expand this and let me minimize this. Okay, this is more than enough, I think so. Okay, so here let's set up our Python virtual environment. So I'm gonna make sure Python 3 -- version, which in case I'm using 3.11, which is a stable version. So you guys use the Python 3.11 or 14, whatever it is. In this case, I'm going to go with the Python 3.11 itself. If you're in the Python 3.9, I strongly recommend to upgrade to 3.11. Okay, because in order to work with the Firebase, Google Cloud instruct to use at least 3.10, because there are some vulnerabilities on the 3.9 version, because that's the default version which comes along with your Mac or Windows. Sorry, Mac or Linux. So Windows, it doesn't matter, because anyways you are going to download it and install it. Okay, so here I'm going to clear it. Then I'm just going to say Python 3 -m virtual environment, and I'm going to give myself a name as env, virtual environment or environment, something like this. So that is going to give me a name, environment, which is created. Then I just have to say activate that environment source, get into the environment folder env, then get into the bin folder, then you have to activate it. Now we are inside the virtual environment. Okay, then here I just need to make sure which Python I'm using. Right now I'm inside my particular folder, environment folder. Then I just need to check the Python version as well as what particular version that it is being using. Okay, so here I'm going to make sure that, so let me create a file app.py. Okay, so this app.py, currently you can see at the bottom right corner, you can see environment 3.11 interpreter is using. Okay, that's what we needed. So I'm going to delete this. This is not necessary. Okay, now we have that everything we needed. All right, so next what we need to do is we have to install certain things over here. So let's go ahead and install that stuff first. So to install that, all you have to do is to say pip3, make sure that you activated your environment. Okay, so pip3 install, and I'm going to install the FastAPI, then UVI con in order to run our local trigger that server API. Then I need the Firebase admin. Okay, if you get into the Firebase, you have to install this Firebase admin package. Okay, that's the package, not underscore. You have to make sure that is a hyphen, Firebase admin. Okay, so hit the enter. That is going to download that necessary packages and everything. So let's wait until it gets successfully downloaded. Okay, which is downloaded now. Then if you say pip3 freeze, that is going to give you the list of packages which has been installed. We have to bring all these things into a file called requirements.txt. Hit the enter. pip freeze requirements.txt. So now you should be able to see the requirements.txt file over there. Perfect, right? Which that's what exactly we needed. All right, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a new folder over here called app.app folder, and inside the app folder I'm going to create a new file called firebase.py, and along with this I'm going to create one more file which is going to be the main.py file. Inside the Firebase file, all we have to do is to create the instance for our Firebase cloud. So I'm just going to say import Firebase. We can simply copy it from here. Plainly copy it from there. Firebase admin credentials, and along with this credentials, I'm going to get that Firestore. Okay. Now we have to get this service account key JSON file. Click generate this. Generate the key. It will gives you the server API private key. This is the private key. Then all we have to do is to replace this name with the server account. Make sure that you put that file in the root file, like your requirements.json file. Okay, and then simply give the path, which is going to be the service account.json. Okay, so this file will automatically map with, and you will get the credentials and everything will be, and we should not push this into your GitHub account, that we need to add a proper git ignore and all those stuffs. Okay, then I'm just going to create a database with the firestore.client. Okay, now we have the client information. So this is the DB that we needed. Then let's jump into the main.py file. Okay, this is the place where we are going to create the apps and where we are going to map the routers and everything. So here I'm just going to say from FastAPI import FastAPI. Okay, then from we need to get the user routes, right? So I'm going to create myself a new folder over here called routes, and I'm going to keep all the routes for the user and it's in the user.py. So I'm going to get that from there. So from app.routes, I'm going to import the user file. Then I'm going to create myself the API, fast API, create the instance, and then I need to include that over here, include the router called user.router. We have the router instance in the user folder, which we don't have currently right now, but anyways, we will create it. So save this. And now let's jump into the user.py. This is the place where we are going to create the routers and all those get, create, post, delete, and everything. Okay. So here I'm just going to say from FastAPI import API router, something like this. Then right after here from app.firebase, I'm going to import our database DB instance. Then I need to create the router instance, which is going to be the API router of we need to set the prefix for that particular route. So prefix, which is going to be /users. Then along with that, you need to create the tags, which is going to be the same as your route name created. Now we are going to have the create route. Okay, which is going to be the post route. So at the symbol router.post, which is going to be /. Okay, which means www.domainname.com/users, plainly something like that /. That's what it is. Here I'm going to create myself a function define. I'm going to say create underscore user. Okay, then we need to supply the data as an object, which is going to be the dict. Okay, dict is nothing but an empty dictionary class. We are simply supplying a dictionary, which is plain object. Okay, we are supplying the dict inside as a parameter for that function. Then I'm just going to say db.collections. So collection, we are going to create a collection, which is going to be, collection is nothing but like a table inside your Firestore. That's what we are saying, collection. Then I'm going to use this users. That's the collection, the table name. And I'm going to use this add. And here I'm simply going to supply the data. If you want to learn what all these stuffs and everything, you can simply search for Firebase docs and get into the Firebase documentation and search for fundamentals or build, click the Firestores. And here you can see manage data, add data, and here you can see the add data, how to add a data into the Firebase collection. You can choose what type of frameworks that you're going to use. I can choose the Python, and you can see this is how they are creating the instance which we created, and using that database instance here. See, db.collection, collection name, and what is the document that you're supplying, and then set data. They are using the set method. The basic difference between the set method and the add method, because we have two different methods to create a data inside your Firestore. Add method creates the unique identifier automatically, but set method, you have to supply the unique identifier by yourself manually. That's the only difference. That's what they mentioned it over here. They are creating a document with this particular ID, and then they are supplying the data. But in this case, ID needs to be automatically generated. So that's the reason we are supplying using the add method. All right. I hope you cleared with this. Then all we have to say return what kind of message that we are simply saying message user created successfully. This is the API response that we will get back. All right. Then right after here, I'm going to create a function called read all users. Sorry. Here at router.get slash, if you simply supply the API slash users in a get method, you will get all the details of the users from the database. Here I'm just going to create a function called define get underscore users. That's the function, and it doesn't need any parameter. I'm going to collect all the documents from the database. So db.collections.users.stream. Okay, so we're going to use this stream method in order to get each and every data from the collections as a JSON format. Okay, and then finally I just need to return it as an array. So it's going to return as an array. So I'm going to get the to underscore dict in order to convert it into an object. Okay, for get the docs in docs. So basically this is the docs array, right? From that array, I'm going to iterate every single document one by one. Then I'm going to convert that into a dictionary, and then I'm going to return it as a array itself. Okay, we are destructuring the array, extracting one by one document from the entire collection, then we are converting it into a dictionary, and then we are going to return it as an array outside. That's what we are doing over here in a single line. Save it. Then fine, and over here I'm gonna read one particular user. For that, I'm gonna create myself router, then I'm gonna get that, and I need to supply the user ID. Okay, which is going to be slash, and then inside the curly brackets you have to supply the user ID. Then I'm gonna say def get underscore user. You have to get that user ID in which is going to be the string type. Open it, and then I'm gonna simply say doc is equals to db.collection of users collections users. Then I need to extract the document which matches that particular user underscore ID. Then I need to get that information by using the get information. So if you want to get that details, you can use this documentation, add data, see query data over here, get data, and there you can understand how to fetch the data from the DB. Okay, so here they created the class, and then they are they are setting some data, then they are fetching it, see, by using this get, setting a reference, then using that reference they are collecting. So basically from here, this is going to be the reference of the document. By the reference, we're going to use this get method. It's going to extract the data from it. Okay, then we need to make sure whether it is exist or not. Okay, so if the data is exist, if doc.exist, using this function exist, if it is exist, then only we have to supply return doc.toDict. If it is not, then we simply have to return the message as user not found, right? Save it. Then finally, right after here, which is one and only route, which is going to be the delete route. And here also I'm just going to say return route.delete. open it, /user ID. Then right after here, we're going to create a function called delete_user, which is going to be user ID and get it as a string. Then we need to collect the user informations db.collections from the user document.delete. Okay, so it's going to identify the document. If the document is there, then it is going to delete it. If it's not there, it's not going to return anything else. Okay, otherwise you can simply use this get method. If the document is exit, then you can simply create the same reference and delete it, or you can use this as well as. Okay, but in Firestore, it's not necessary. Delete function, it's going to delete the record only if it is there. If it's not going to throw you an error. Okay, so let me save this. Perfect. Now we have all the routes and we have to make sure it is working properly. So in order to make sure whether it is working properly, we have to run these applications in the local host. So let's make sure to run this. Okay, let me clear this. And here I'm just going to say UV icon. It's the package that we install. Then get into the app folder we have, jump into the main, then trigger the app. Okay, and I'm just going to use this reload option if there is any changes happening inside the code. Hit the enter. So that is going to run the file in the local host, and this is the local host URL. And let's get into the local host URL and simply type /docs in order to run your Swagger. So now we are inside the Swagger. If you're using /users or something, that is going to trigger that API. If you are saying /docs, that's going to trigger the Swagger where you can manage all your APIs for your users collections. Okay, this is provided by the FastAPI package itself, so you don't have to do anything else. So here I'm just going to get into the create user, then I'm gonna try it out, because basically we instruct the create user route as the dictionary. It's expecting as a dictionary, which in case our plain object. So I need to supply the plain object over here. So for that, I'm just going to supply the name as the key. Use the double quotes for your key and for your value as well as. I'm going to supply my name. Then I'm going to supply the email, which is going to be with trail.galaxy@gmail.com. Then designation, something like this. I'm simply going to say full stack developer or content creator, something like that. So I'm just going to make sure this is as execute. So it's loading, and here you can see it's triggered that post method, and here we got the response message as user created successfully, which means it's working perfectly. We have to get back into our Firebase project, get into the Firestore. You should be able to see a new collection as created as the user, and a new document also created by the unique identifier all by itself. Then we have this data object which we sent it from the response. So we have the entire data stored over here, which is create route is working perfectly. And now all I have to do is to make sure all the rest of the stuff. Let's get back over here. I think I need to get the get user, try it out, and click execute. And you should be able to get an array, which is that. This is the data that we needed it, right? Which we are having it, which is working perfectly as it's supposed to be. All right. So, and yep, which is yeah. Okay, but we notice that currently we are not getting the ID reference. If you don't get the ID reference, how can we delete or get the data, right? By the time when you're creating the ID, creating a data document, you have to get that reference. From that reference only you can able to get the ID. So we have to make some modifications over here. So let me go ahead and delete this document, delete. Okay, so here this is plainly creating a document, but from here we need to collect the user's information, user reference. So in order to get that, I'm simply going to create myself a new value called _doc reference, which is equals to that. Then right after here, doc underscore ID, from the doc underscore ID, from the doc reference, which is going to return as an array. And from that array, I'm going to get the first index, which is going to be your ID. Okay, because that's how you can extract the ID from there. Then you can return the informations along with your user created message, and or you can simply store the data as well as. So by this way you can get the id and you can return the id along with this, but we don't want to return it, we have to show that id along with it, right? So basically what I'm going to do is, instead of adding the data on the very first step itself, I'm simply going to create myself an empty document. Okay, just I'm gonna create myself an empty document. Then from that document I'm gonna extract the id. So basically for the data which we are receiving inside the response, I'm gonna, for that data I'm gonna create a new field called id prop. Then for that prop I'm gonna get the reference and then I'm gonna assign the id, because right now in that empty document you don't have any field, so you can directly access the id from the document itself. Then you can set that reference along with this updated data. So whatever the data you received from the collections, either from the user, you have that. Along with that, now we do have the id field as well as. So let's try it out. Let's save this, and application startup is perfectly fine. And now let me get this data, refresh this, get in the users, let me try it out and replace this with this informations, execute. Perfect, you can see the message is created, user is created successfully. And now let me cancel this and let me get into the get users and try it out and click execute. You should be able to see the id as well as in it. Now we have the id in your Firebase collections. If you check it out, you should be able to see the id, which is this document id. We will store it over here. So basically now we can use that id in order to work with our the rest of the apis. Okay, because base using this id only we should be able to get the single user or delete the single users informations and everything. All right, so now we know that all these apis, it will work perfectly, so you don't have to worry about it, or you can simply check all those informations whether it is working fine or not. So let me get into the get user, try it out, supply the user id, execute. You should be able to see the informations. So if I want to make sure that delete is also working fine, I'm going to supply, try it out, user id, execute. And here user deleted successfully. If you go ahead and check here, you should not able to see the document anymore. Okay, so that's why the Firebase, I love the Firebase because it's super fast. And click cancel. Okay, and I'm gonna create this informations one more time all by ourselves. Cancel it, where it is create user. And okay, so I'm gonna copy this, try it out. Okay, use the same data, create. You can see now the new user has been created. You should be able to see the document over here. Okay, which is created perfectly fine. This is what we needed. Now we have the id and everything, which means the apis, everything is working perfectly as it's supposed to be. All right, now all we have to do is to get it and push it into the GitHub. So in order to do that, I'm gonna we have to create the git ignore. So I'm going to use the example. So we need to generate the git ignore file, right, before pushing in all these things. So let's open up the ChatGPT and ask the generate the git ignore file. We need to generate the git ignore file in order to push the Python fast API and Python fast API Firestore Firestore project with service account json.key file, which needs to be ignored. Okay, so we have all these necessary informations. It's going to be, so I'm simply going to copy this in the root. I'm just going to say dot git ignore and paste it. And yeah, this is the thing. Once you save it, you should be able to see all these files that will be ignored by the time when you are pushing it into the GitHub. Okay, so service account, make sure this name matches over here, paste it, save it. Okay, this is how you can ignore this. All right, All right, so this creates a problem. So if you're not pushing your service account key into your GitHub, this raises an issue when you're rendering it, when you're deploying it, because right now we are directly accessing your service account key file, but this file will not going to be in your GitHub. That will create an issue. So in order to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this server, clear it. Then I'm just going to make sure pip3 install python-.env environment file. Hit the enter. Okay, that is going to be successfully downloaded, and we have to update this into our requirements file. So let's say pip freeze requirements.txt. That is going to have the updated .env package into it, because we need that. Where it is. Okay, where dot, yeah, may please make sure the .env is there. All right, it's in there now. Next, what I need to do is I need to create a env file in the root.env. Okay, so we have the env file, and here I'm gonna put our the Firebase connection string URL, right? So we have to get that connection string URL. So in order to do that, let's create a variable over here. So I'm just going to simply say Firebase underscore credentials, something like this, credentials, which is equals to open the service account key, simply copy everything literally from there, and then paste it. And this is not supposed to be as this multi-line. This will throw an issue. It needs to be a single line. So you have to delete all these spaces, join it in a single line, something like this. So you have to break this, and you have to, okay, something like this. This is the thing. By this way, we can keep our service account as a secured one, and as well as in a proper way. It needs to be in a single line, something like this. Save it. Now let's close this. Now we have this credentials file. Anyways, we can keep this file and we can ignore it on the GitHub, which is will be. And then we have to make some necessary changes in the Firebase, in the firebase.py. Okay, so what we need to do is let me delete completely from here. So here I'm just going to say from env, which is equals to import from dot so here, so let's import the packages. So import the OS, and then import JSON, and then we need to import from .env. From .env, I'm gonna import load.env, then import Firebase underscore admin, then Firebase underscore admin credentials, Firestores, and everything. We need to load that .env file. So in order to load that, I'm just simply going to call this load env. Then we need to get the JSON string from the env and convert it into a dictionary, right? So for that, I'm just going to create the Firebase underscore JSON, which is going to be os.getEnv, and you need to supply your environmental credentials from here. I'm going to copy this, then I'm going to paste it over here. Then right after here, we need to convert the string into your dictionary. So credentials underscore dict is equals to JSON dot load that Firebase JSON object. It will be converted into a dictionary. Now we need to create the credentials, and we need to initialize the app. So credential, which is equals to credentials dot certificate. Okay, so this certificate needs to be capital letter, because that is how it's expected from the Firebase setup itself. Okay, certificate, and supply your credential dictionary into it. Then we need to prevent it from the duplicate initializations. prevent it from duplicate initializations. If not, Firebase admins dot underscore apps. If you don't have the app which is not being created, we have to create the applications, or else we have to utilize, you have to use that application. Okay, we have to initialize it only if we don't have it. Otherwise, we should not initialize it. Then we need to get that informations. So we have to get the client instance. So here, all we have to do is to simply firestore dot client instance. All right, something like that. Now we have that client instance, which is entirely changed, and this is the same way we are accessing it. Let's make sure it's working perfectly fine. So I'm just going to run this application. So far it's working, and let me refresh it over here, and let me get into the users. Let's trigger it, execute. This should work, and here we go. So we are getting our response APIs and everything. Now we can get back directly into our we can simply push this into our GitHub. Okay, so let me get into your code over here, initialize the repositories, and then if you make sure this file is being ignored, this file is ignored, and environment PyCache, everything is being ignored. We don't want to push all these stuffs completely. Okay, now I can get into over here changes, which is going to be what we can say, project initiated and completed, something like that. Commit, and now I need simply get into the remote, add it from the GitHub, and you can choose the repository Python backend server API, which we created right now, and I can simply give a name as the server API Python, local repository name, git repository name. Then I can publish this. I can get into the pull or push and choose this push to options. I can directly push it into the git remote, or you can follow this command, all these commands. Okay, now this is entire stuff is being pushed into the GitHub. I can directly get over here and I can check it out, which is being added up over here. See all the necessary informations which is there. Then I can get into the render folder, get in the render domain, and I can simply get into sign up with using your GitHub account, and all you have to do is to create yourself a project. Okay, in this project I'm gonna add environment name, not as an environment name. This is going to be new. Okay, in the same project I'm going to create myself a new web service. Choose web service, don't choose statics or private or nothing. Choose web service, click web service, and you can choose the Python backend server API. Choose that. Okay, so this is the domain name which is going to be. Okay, so here you can see we have this build commands and everything, and this is going to be, make sure this file name is exactly the same file name which we do have over here, right? So requirements, or you can simply copy this file name and you can replace this file name over here. Otherwise, please make sure they both are the same. And then start command. Okay, so what is the host command we are using? So in order to run the local host, so this is the command. Okay, instead of that command, along with that, instead of reload options, you have to use this particular options, app.main, because we are inside the app folder, and then main, trigger the app, use this host 000 and use this particular port. Okay, now this is the thing we need, and we are going to use the free version only. We are not going to use any particular production mode and everything. Okay, so this is it, and all those things, you don't have to worry about the rest of the stuffs and everything. Yep, everything is perfectly fine. And then environment variables, get into the env file and you can simply copy it and you can paste it over here. The credentials will be added up perfectly, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, and in the advanced settings we don't need to do anything else, just leave it as it is, and you can simply say deploy the services. So we have to wait until it's successfully downloaded, right? So it is triggering it. Let's wait. Okay, Python version, it's using 3.14. We are using 3.11. I hope it will not create any issues over there. But if it is causing any particular issue, we have to install that specific version. So let's wait until it's successfully downloaded and everything. Okay, it's successfully installed all the requirement files and everything. Okay, no issues so far. It's uploading the build. Okay, the files it's been uploading. Okay, it's in progress. Deploying. Let's wait. Build successful. Good. Then since we're using the free, of course it will take some time. You have to be patient. You have to wait patiently. Let's wait. Okay, so it's running our application now. uvcon app.main app host in this particular port. Let's wait. I hope it will not throw any particular issues right after here, because if it is throwing any issues, we have to check that as well as. Okay, so it is being successfully deployed and it is available in the live. So this is our link, I think so. Let me click that link, open it. There we go. See, we are having our link, and if I simply get into the docs, I should be able to. Okay, docs will work on the local server only, I think so. Users. Okay. /API/users. Details not found. What is the route we do have? We simply prefixed with the users only, right? /users. It's saying that the API is not found. It's deployed. / okay, otherwise what is it? This is the route. Let's check it out. /users. Huh. Oh, it's confusing. I'm not sure what is happening, so let's try suspending it and let me create it one more time from the ground. So not sure, maybe because of the previous issue which we have on the previous project. Let me suspend it, and currently there is no active services in my project. Okay, so everything has been suspended. There is no active services in my project, nothing. So here I can simply, okay, in this project I'm gonna create myself a new service, web services. Okay, now let me create. Okay, it is not going to allow me to create a new project. How to create this project? Delete this project settings, delete the project, and let me delete the project completely. Delete it. Okay, so we don't have nothing, everything's been successfully deleted, and I'm going to create myself a new project, and then in this case YouTube hyphen with trivial Rafi. Let's keep it as the development. Create. Okay, so now here I'm going to create myself a new services, and let me name the services as the web service, and I'm going to use the git provider, and this is the one which we have to going to use. And here this is the command, and this is the host command and everything. We are not going to change anything else. Let's keep it as it is, free version. And in the environment variable, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this simply as it is, and let's deploy the services. This should fix that issue, I think so. Let's wait and see. So now it started to uploading the build. Let's wait until it's successfully finished. This might take a couple of minutes. Let's wait. Okay, it is now started. It is in progress. Deploying web currencies. One build is successful, and it doesn't take that much time. Let's wait. I hope this time it should work. If it is not again working, there is one and only option. All we have to do is to get back over here, clear the complete cache and deploy it. But for if you're a user, if you're doing it for a very first time, like creating the projects and everything, it should work. But in my case, I already had some project and I'm trying to do something else, and that's the issue right now. So let's figure it out what's that be. Not sure, because I'm using the render for very first time, because that's the only one free. They're the platform which is providing for free in order to deploy your Python API services. Because this is completely minimal number of code, not much complicated stuffs and everything, and it is being deployed now. Let's check it out. Let's click this. Okay, it's saying details not found, and if I simply say docs, that should, yes, it is working. So maybe the catch issue. Okay, so I deleted the project and I deployed it. It's working perfectly. Let's check it out, try it out, and click execute. It should return the complete data. Here we go. And now let me copy this and cancel this, and let me create a new user, try it out, delete everything, and delete this ID. Instead of my name, I'm going to give the name as John Doe, role which is going to be developer, and the email address which is going to be john.doe@gmail.com. Let's try to execute. There we go. User has been successfully created. Let's check it out in the Firebase, in our Firebase project itself. We should be able to see two different users, John Doe, which is our API. It's working as we expected. All right, so we successfully created an server API, and we deployed it on a free domain, right? So we faced a lot of issues, so we handle it, right? If you have any questions or by the during the in this build or any others, just point the timestamp and then post it in the comment sections along with your questions. We are happy to help you out. All right. And if you're watching our channel for the very first time, please hit the like and subscribe button, and that encourages us to come up with the more projects, right? So if you want the source code, you can click the link in the description below and you can have the source code for yourself for education purpose, right? And you can check it out the live URL as well, as it is in the description. All right, so I will see you all in the next video then. All right, take care, bye.